Welcome to the Parent Guide to GCSE podcast, episode number 12. Today's guest is Apprentice superstar, the one and only Joseph Valente. Okay, welcome to the Parent Guide to GCSE podcast, and hello, Joseph Valente.
Hi, good afternoon. How are we doing?
All good here. Thank you very much. Now, we just had a very quick chat off before we started recording about the fact that you went to the same school that we started teaching at together.
Indeed, we were.
Yeah. Did you go to it when it was the old stand ground or the new stand ground?
The old. Yeah. I carried on working whilst it became the new stand ground, but no, the good old days, stand ground college.
Yeah, the good old days.
About 6 months away from being your teachers, probably. So
crazy, right?
A whole other conversation.
You would have hated me if that was the case.
That was maths. So you said in the book that you liked maths, so I might have.
I did. I do like numbers.
You've been astonishingly successful despite not having had a normal school experience. What do you think are your key skills attributes that have made you so successful?
So I think a lot of it comes to do with my upbringing, really, and the background of where I came from. We came from a working class family. My mum worked 3 jobs. My dad didn't work. It was a very challenging time. We struggled for money and struggled for all of the things that I wanted that seems like all of the other wealthier kids had. Now that gave me a certain level of drive from very early on. That allowed me to, focus and fight and go out there and try and win all those things. Because I learned in the very early days that no one was going to get them for me. So my drive came from really not having the things that I wanted and not being able to accept that that's just the way that it was. That makes sense. So that really pushed me and inspired me. And I was very lucky to have a very successful uncle growing up, and I got to see 2 different worlds. And I do believe that a lot of people get stuck in their world and they believe that their circumstances are their circumstances and they can't break out because anybody that is different to them is they're unique, or they're lucky, or they've been given this or they've been given that, and then they're not like me, so I can't get their type of mentality I see. And, seeing my dad and seeing my uncle, who used to turn up once a year in a brand new BMW or a brand new Mercedes in a suit, he walked with presence, he spoke well, he was very likable, and controlled the room, versus us driving in an A-Reg banger, and my dad not working and stuff. I saw that there were 2 lives and that you could have the choice to become either one of those. I could have been like my dad, or I could be like this guy, and I chose to find out what the steps were to get from where we were to be like him and have that life. So that was a big inspiration to getting me going, if that makes sense.
You talked, so we both have read your book, and you talked a lot in the book about the influence that both your parents had on your life in very different ways. Can you talk a little bit more about kind of how that was for you?
Yeah, without a doubt. As you get older, you start to appreciate things in a different way. And I obviously loved my mum so much and still do growing up. And she was such a hard worker, and she was the provider, and she was an amazing woman. And she inspired me to want to be successful because I had to give back. I had to get her out of work because I knew how much she struggled and how much she put up with and dealt with, and I felt like I had to give her something at the back end of her life, and I was the man to do that. So that inspired me to work hard and create enough wealth so I could get her out of retirement, which I did about 2 years ago. And she's about age 56, which was nice. And then, as much as I hated my dad growing up and really hated him, and I stopped seeing him at the age of 13, and I've only spoke to him once since, and I'm now 30. Now I look back and think that maybe if he was an average dad and was okay and a good guy, then I might have turned out different and not have wanted the universe, and I might have just been okay with just being okay, if that makes sense. So I love what I do now and where I want to go, and I kind of thank him for the fact that he was an arsehole, allowed me to create a different life, but it also gave me values that my children will never ever go through what I went through or grew up how I grew up, and I would always make sure that I'm the person that I didn't have. Does that make sense?
I love the story in the book about your mum, and in the office as you were busy getting expelled, and the look of disappointment on her face, and how you then tracked forward 10 years or so, whatever it was, to The Apprentice and the studio audience at the after show, as it were, and she's sitting there beaming, smiling. You'd made her proud, and it'd been a long journey, but that was...
what a feeling. I'm glad you brought that up, because that was probably one of the most special moments in my life. And, I remember coming out of that headmaster's office and how disappointed she was and crying. And, I don't know where it came from, but I just remember thinking at 15, and I said to her, listen, don't worry, I'm going to be okay. This is the beginning. And I know that you said that it's going to be parents listening, and, she was obviously my parent and was very worried about the fact that I was going to be a failure, and, GCSEs were the be all and end all, and what I was going to do without them, how was I ever going to succeed and get a job and everything else. Now, if your child doesn't do well at school, it doesn't mean he's a bad person. The curriculum might not just fit his style or her style. They may excel in some things and not others. It is an important part of progression, but it isn't the final destination. If they don't succeed, they've got another chance to do it. And the world is changing, the way we make money, the way businesses grow, and people aren't going to be used to people making money online through content creation and so on. The curriculum isn't designed to teach any of that, by the way. So your child might be very passionate about one thing or a certain subject that wouldn't be what would be relevant to them being taught in school, and they're not going to necessarily fit. So the point that I'm trying to get to is if they end up being expelled, or they're not getting on and they're not getting in lots of trouble because they don't fit, don't count them out just yet.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, there will be a lot of parents whose children don't do particularly well at GCSE, particularly this year, possibly, because most students start working for revision around the time the pandemic hit. So their teachers will have not...
Are they going to go ahead the GCSEs or not?
No, they've been cancelled. So teacher assessed grades are being given. So for those students who aren't particularly academic, who may have put some work in towards the back end of year 11, schools were closed by the time they were thinking about putting the work in. So there will be some people who are really going to miss out. And the parents may be concerned that it is going to be the end of the road, as it were. But I think your example shows that actually it could well just be the beginning of something fabulous. So.
Yeah.
And there are two ways that the child can take that. They can go, right, nobody believes in me now. This is what I did, right? No one believes in me. My mum's given up. The school's given up. And there was two ways that I was going to go. And I would say to them, and I'll be honest about them, right? Part of me wanted to go, stick my middle finger up and say, right, I'll show you how bad I can become now. Right, because that's what you think about me. That's who you think I'm going to be. I'll be the baddest kid and the baddest you've ever wanted me to be. Right, that I nearly went down that road, so close. Up until the point that I was 15, hanging around with 20, 21-year-olds in the park on the days that I should have been at school. And I was getting in lots of trouble. I was with the wrong crowd. And I realised, and I looked around and I thought, Jesus, this is going to be my life now. If I don't do something here, the cavalry isn't coming. No one's coming to save me. My mum's given up. My dad isn't around. The schools are gone. It's down to me to change my life here. So luckily I was able to turn it. But there's two ways that your child is going to go if they were like me. They're either going to go down the bad road and there is no coming back, or they're going to make a decision and go that way. But the parent should be fundamental in pulling back from that way and inspiring to go that way, and play a critical role in the teenager's life at this moment in time, to make sure that you're inspiring and say, listen, you don't go that way. You haven't, you might not have succeeded at this, but what are you testing me on? And I always never could understand that, I'd be sent to art, I can't draw, and then you're telling me I'm no good at art. I know. Hello. You don't have to tell me that I'm no good. Just stop sending me there. So,
I thought it was schools these days that did this. I didn't realise it happened back in 2000 and whenever.
So I never quite got it, and then your teachers are saying that you're good at one subject when you know that you're not, and that was difficult. But it's a critical time to support and say, look, go this way, go this way, go this way, don't go that way. But, you know, be around and help them go the right way. Makes sense?
Yeah, so you talked about the moment you decided you were going to turn it around and do something different. What did you do? What were the steps? So if for a teenager listening to this, going with, do you know what, that sounds like that's where I am. I'm at that crossroads. Can you kind of tell us a bit of the story about what happened there?
Okay. Yeah, 100%. I'd say, look, fast forward your life and look into the future and see who you're going to become. I knew I would end up becoming like my dad, and I hated him so much I didn't want to. So that inspired me to make the change. Secondly, you owe yourself more. You know, you've got one life, and you owe yourself more. I don't care what teachers say about me. You know, I didn't care that my mum had given up. I didn't care what anybody was thinking. I cared about myself. And I thought, you know, I've got one life here. I've got to create a destiny. I have to. You know, I've got one shot. So why would I be bothered about what anybody else says? I want to win for myself. Okay, so first and foremost, you need to do it for yourself. You know, you're worth more, and you've only got one life, so make the most of it. But look at where your life will end up if you don't make a change. You know, you're going to have no money, you're going to struggle, it's going to be a battle, and you don't want that. You know, I saw what that was like growing up, and if you've had that growing up, then don't do yourself the disjustice and do the same. Second, you've got to realise that you don't have much to offer, okay, at this moment in time, and you better realise that quickly, and you better start making yourself valuable, okay, and you can start making lots and lots of money further down the line, but for now, you need to graft and work hard. And, you know, and I went to work for a local plumber who just started his business, and I went to work with him for a whole year for free. No, I wasn't bothered about the money. I didn't need it really. I was surviving off a little bit of money, and I was still living at home. But that value that I gave made him say to me straight away, 100%, I'll give you the job. And in exchange, I got all of his knowledge. So by the time I turned up at college at 16, when everybody else was there, I was already a year ahead of my college classmates. And I smashed through the apprenticeship much quicker. I was able to ask for pay rises when I started getting paid much quicker. And it made me attractive to the marketplace. You know, you've got to add value to the marketplace, first and foremost, to be able to get the reward that you want back. You've got to sell yourself in, you know, and there'll be people that say to me, oh, you don't need to work for free. People should be paying you for your time. Yes, of course they are. But if you're wanting to get something that people aren't going to be chucking at you, then you've got to give them something, right? And, you know, I used to work for free all of the time to try and get ahead. And it really paid off. So I can only go off my own experiences. So I would say, go to work, find a job, and try it for free if you want to win the job. And when you're there, work extremely hard. And you don't have to do a year. You could do a week or 2 weeks, but just show them you're so committed and you're so valuable that when it comes to the time that they make the decision, that you will not, you will make sure that you get paid. Makes sense?
I think another point that comes from the book is don't give up as well, because you had so many obstacles thrown in your way in that first, how long was the apprenticeship? Was it
2 years?
2 years. And what, 6 employers?
Yeah, 6 or 7
all through
employers.
No fault of your own. And it was just a constant struggle to get where you needed to get to.
And, you know, it was almost, you got to the point where it became normal that every few weeks I would lose my apprenticeship, you know, and I was a good guy and it wasn't my fault. And I don't mind, but at 15, nothing was my fault. It was everybody else's, you know, or I thought that, you know, like lots of teenagers do. But then it really, really wasn't. But, you know, I just never gave up. And there were points that was like, well, I'm in my 3rd apprenticeship now. Is somebody in the universe telling me not to be a plumber? You know, it's somebody telling me, and I kept battling through and I battled through, and you get the result. But you've got to ask yourself, how bad do you want it? You know, that still runs through my DNA till now. How bad do you want it? How many hours are you prepared to work? How much does it mean to you? How much do you want to change your life? And you've got to ask yourself, what is your why? My why was so ingrained in me that there was no way that I was ever going to give up. It just doesn't comprehend giving up. Yeah, so I used that why and all those years of bad emotions and wanting to change my life to propel and inspire me to keep going. That was the fuel that never ran out.
Yeah, a phrase I heard recently that I loved was new level, new devil.
Yeah.
Whenever you step out of your comfort zone and you're stretching yourself, something comes to just give you a bit of a knock. And at that point, you have the choice. It's either like give up because it's got a little bit tough, or show the world what you've got. And you very definitely took the second option there. Yeah.
Next level.
And
I remember that one.
Yeah, the why thing that you talk about is so important, but there are so many students these days and so many parents who sit there thinking, well, I've talked to my child about it. They've got no idea that, and that causes a problem with the drive that they have. You know, why should they bother working? Why should they bother revising? They don't have that end goal to make them think, I've got to do this and I've got to do it really well. And that's one of the things we keep banging on about, talking about endlessly, because without the why, it's very difficult to get them.
You're spot on. I mean, and you just said there the end goal. Now, I professionally coach businesses now for a lot of money, and I'll sit down with the business owner and say to them first and foremost, okay, what's the end goal? Begin with the end in mind, because they're just, you know, it doesn't matter if you don't know what you're doing at 15. I'm coaching businesses that they're 40, 50 years old, and they still aren't knowing where they're going. Right? They're just doing it because they haven't got the end goal yet. So then, you know, the parents should be saying to the child, who do you want to be? Yeah, who do you want to be? Get an idea, write 3 or 4 ideas down. Who do you want to be? What's the end goal? Begin with the end in mind, right? Then once you know what the end is, now we work out an action plan of how you're going to get there. And, you know, if these opportunities that you take throughout your career don't go towards your end goal, then they're not the right opportunities. If you want to go to university to party or to have a couple of years to chill or to do a random degree that isn't going to help you in the working world after, it isn't the right opportunity. It isn't going to get you to your end goal. So don't take a degree in a random subject when you want to be something completely different. You know, so begin with that end in mind and then start to build out a roadmap to what that looks like. What are my stepping stones? My uncle told me when I was younger that life's a journey, and on each part of the journey you get into a different vehicle, right? And each vehicle will take you to you know, a different path in the road. Now, Impregas for me, that business was my taxi to the bus station. So he would say that you'd leave your house, you get in a taxi, get to the bus station, you get on a coach, you go to the train station, you get on a train, you go to the airport, you get on the airplane, and you go here. And Impregas was your vehicle to get to the next stage. So there has to be a set of vehicles that are going to get you out on your roadmap. But you know, you ain't going to leave your house and try. You live in London, you won't get to Scotland, right, by getting in your car and just driving. You need your final destination and you need the roads that you're going to take. So look at your life in the same way. What's your final destination? What vehicle you're in right now? And map out how you're going to get there. You know, you need a structure to work to, not just in business, not just in your GCSEs, in your whole life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the things, it's one of the reasons that we talk about this so early on in our membership for parents, because teenagers don't think about this stuff. They're so wrapped up, understandably, in like GCSEs and academic stuff, because that's everything at the time. That's all that their teachers are going on about. It's all that they hear about all the time. If their route isn't something traditionally academic, then it can be really, really hard for them to actually see that bit further down the road and go, do you know what, actually, I'd be really great at this particular trade, for example. So is there anything, sort of words of advice in terms of looking at more vocational routes? Because there are plenty available. It's just not something that schools talk about as much, I think. Yeah,
100%. I think, you know, you've got to look at, I recently ran a national company with 150 people in it as the CEO, and I can't sit at a desk for more than 3 hours. I still can't. Yeah, I can't, I don't like and sit down and write for ages, but I can run senior managers on £100,000 a year and make a whole company work. So just because I don't learn in that academic style, it doesn't mean that I'm not any good. Right? Same with the child, right? So I think you've got to get on board with what they're good at. Yeah, you don't, with school, GCSEs in how many subjects?
10.
Well,
do you go
10
to
maximum, but probably 8 these days.
Okay, do you get employed and do 10 jobs? You do one. You do one skill. Yeah? That's it. If you're an accountant, you're not a salesperson, an operations manager, you're not in recruitment, you're in accounts. And as a job, you are graded on how good you do at that job in that one specific subject. So forget about the 10, 11 subjects. What are the 2 good subjects that they're going to master and take into a job? Because then, you might not like me for saying this, but then the others don't really matter, right? Because you're not going to be 11, you're not going to have 11 job roles. You're going to have 1 job role, really. So you need to master that skill. So understand what your child is good at. Understand what they like. Stop trying to get them better at the things that they can't do, and get them to own and improve on the 1 or 2 skills that they can really excel at. You know, I can't use Excel spreadsheets, right? I am crap at them, but I can read them inside out. Okay, 3 years of advanced, insane levels of forecasting and planning and strategy and numbers and conversion rates and everything. I can read and track all of the conversions and everything within the numbers. You ask me to put it together, it will take me 6 months, or I just wouldn't get there. Okay, so I don't sit down and learn Excel courses. I get somebody to do the Excel spreadsheet for me, and then I do the bit that I'm good at, if that makes sense. Own what they're good at. And get them to work harder on what they're good at, and do okay in what they're not good at. But don't waste too much time on the stuff that they aren't going to take moving forward. And try and get on board with what they like. You know, where do they want to go? What does it mean for them? You know, not what people are ramming down their throats and telling them to do. What do you want from your life? Where would you like to go? What do you think can help you the most? And, you know, being an apprentice or going into construction at the time, for me, I felt like it was the non-smart way of going to university. Yeah, it was like, you're not as clever and you're not as good if you can't go to uni, so you go and do an apprenticeship. But that's just not the case. The reality is, I still had to do a MVQ level 3 gas course that I ended up paying £6,000 for, and I had to study for it and everything else. So I can do the studying bit, but working with my hands, doing the job and everything else just made me so much more productive, and I was able to excel in it. You know, I went from being an expelled student that was getting kicked out every single day, scribing school every single day, turning up with no books, no bags, in trainers purposely so they'll send me home. You know, I was a little shit, to be honest with you. And then at 15, when I went to work for this plumber, you should have seen who turned up. In his uniform, polite, going into customers' houses, great guy, worked really hard, did whatever I was told, never answered him back, because I wanted to do that. I didn't want to go into English, science and humanities or whatever it was.
Or art.
Yeah, or art. Yeah. So, you know, just because it's the environment, not necessarily the child or the person.
Definitely.
Yeah?
If you look at a group of teachers on a training day ever, we hate training days.
Yeah.
Like, it's all the things they teach you not to do as a teacher. So they'll stand up, they'll read a PowerPoint to you. We're all there dying of boredom. And every single teacher in the room starts messing around. We become that naughty child because we don't want to be there, and we're not interested because they're not teaching it in a way that interests us.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. You've got to play to people's strengths, and you've got to help people find their strengths first. So yeah.
And it's difficult to do because you've got to understand that obviously a curriculum has to cater for the masses and it can't be tailored. But when you understand that, that's okay. But then, you know, from on after school, then they get a lot more specific into what they want to do. So then, you know, they've done their best in the GCSEs, they've owned the 1 or 2 subjects that they're going to really excel at. Then it becomes a lot more niche, you know, until the point that they get to really what they want to do. So, you know, don't beat them up if they don't do too good in GCSEs, and just support them on doing much better in the specific role that they want to achieve on.
Yeah. I was going to talk, I guess, briefly about your memories of school, and you know, if you could go back, is there anything you'd change, or is it that the journey that you went on made you who you are today, and that's just the way that it was?
I'd be less disrespectful because I understand how hard the job would be to be an adult and to manage lots of teenagers. It sounds like hell on earth. to be honest. If I had to do it now, it's very, I'm a terrible manager, and like being a teacher is kind of managing the class as well. I know how hard it is employing people to do what you need them to do, let alone, people that don't really want to be there and they're forced to come. It must be very difficult. So hats off. And, I wouldn't have been so disrespectful because it's such a hard job to do. So I would take that back. And then I probably would have probably tried harder to understand, to learn in the stuff that I needed. For example, I'm still crap at IT, right? And I didn't listen in that subject. I'm no good on computers. I have to get everybody to do everything for me, and it's a nightmare because I know what I want to do. I just can't make the thing work half the time over the very basics. Right, so I would have excelled in those subjects that I would have known, because I didn't know that they were going to be valuable to me at some point, because I didn't really realise what it was going to do for my life further down the line. So I would have owned the subjects better, and not think that it's a waste of time, because I spend probably 2 hours a day self-educating now, and I have done for the last 6 years. I am obsessed with education, but all I do is learn. I learn so much, but it's because it's stuff that I want to learn, and not stuff that's forced on me, and things that I'm passionate about. But, I can't get enough of learning now. I'm probably reading 2 audiobooks a week, and I have been doing that for years now. And I need to do that to keep leveling up in where I want to go and gaining new skills and knowledge.
So for the benefit of the audience, what books are you on at the moment?
So I'm on one called Traffic Secrets, which is basically by a guy called Russell Brunson. So my new business model is basically education. Well, actually, I've just launched a business called The Power to Succeed University. Can you believe the irony? I've now got my own online university, and you get a sales degree at the end of it and everything, which is brilliant. So part of my business model is to drive traffic to free webinars where I host free training, and then we sell courses off the back of the webinar. So I've got that one on the go. And one called the 10X Rule, which I'm listening to this week, which I've read maybe 50 times.
I better persevere then. I've started that one and I didn't get through all of it. I got distracted by something.
You read or listen?
That one I'm reading.
Yeah.
When I was doing long car journeys, because I was working over in Bedford, and every so often I'd have it on audiobook, but I find I pick it up better by reading. So for me,
and I'm an audio guy. I can't read. I can read, but I don't read. I don't read, if that makes sense.
If I find a good thing on an audiobook, I find if I'm learning lots from it, I have to get it on Kindle as well, so that I can read and absorb it properly. It's stupid, but it's true. The
other thing that I do as well, if anybody does listen to audiobooks and wants to tip, is I now listen to them on 2 times speed and get through them half as quick. You have to get used to adjusting those ears to it, but once you can digest it, you can fly through the books.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something we recommend to parents who tell us their kids just aren't readers. They're not into it. It's find a book that interests you, that you actually care about, and then get the audiobook so you don't have to read in inverted commas. You can listen and you can still be learning. So even if it's biographies and stuff. So talking of biographies, the 3 biggest influences on your life, please.
My mum, my uncle, and then I have to say next, Lord Sugar.
That's exactly what he wrote on the list of questions as his predictions.
Just throwing it out, I personally love Uncle Tim. I mean, he sounds fantastic.
Brilliant. He would love that.
What does he see? What does he think of you now that he's seen you grow from way back when to where you are now? He must be proud.
Yeah, I think so. It's funny because he started helping me with the business as well when just before The Apprentice, helped me write my business plan and everything for it, and we became very, very close around that time. And and then to see it go on to a national company from there. He remembers when I'd drive down to Birmingham when I was about 23 or 24, and I had about 3 or 4 plumbers working for me, a part-time lady in the office, Debbie, and my phone would just ring non-stop, and we were trying to do like a session where he was coaching me on how to become a businessman, and it never stopped ringing, and it was crazy to go from that, and then a few years later to where I got to. But yeah, no, he's a cool guy.
Awesome.
Well, I've got to ask some questions. I'm a bit of a fanboy about The Apprentice. So how was it? You went from late application, or you read the email late, didn't you, to winning it in, what, 6 months?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. So I'm a big believer in the law of attraction. I believe in destiny. I believe in legacy. I believe whatever you put out into the universe, you get back, be that positive or negative. And, if you read the book, if you read the story, that I bought Lord Sugar's book and I took out a 15 grand loan and started my business off the back of it without, any knowledge about how to run a business or anything. It inspired me that much. And then 3 years later, I walked into my home on a January night, very cold night, and got my phone out and it said the last call for The Apprentice. And I knew at that moment, that very moment, that was the universe sending me a sign. And I knew I'd already won. When I saw that, I knew it was just, I'm so obsessed with this stuff and it's hard to describe, but I knew at that moment in time. So then I applied for it. I got on, and I had a business that was doing $500,000 a year at that point already at the age of 25 when I applied, and I had to go away for 9 weeks and disappear off the face of the earth. Okay, and I could only tell 4 people, and I was the main man running the business. Like, we were doing hundreds of maintenance jobs a day that I was organising and sorting out and speaking to all the property management companies. But, for me and for anybody listening, if you want to get to the next level, you got to risk it. You got to risk it big. And I was prepared to risk the 3 years of building that company on the very slim chance out of 60,000 people that I was going to win that show. And I risked everything I'd created, and I disappeared for 9 weeks. I told all of my friends and greater family and clients that my auntie in Italy was very, very ill and lived on a goat farm and didn't have Wi-Fi, didn't have telephone signals, and I didn't know when I was going to be back. I had to go and see her. And then I basically disappeared. Phone went off and I didn't come home for 9 weeks and speak to anybody. So it was a crazy, crazy experience. It was, 18-hour days, 6 days a week, no phone, no money. You just task after task. You're locked down in this house with all these people that you don't know. You're constantly being filmed. You're chucked into difficult, awkward situations where you kind of feel like you're set up to fail, where you're pitching these crappy products or whatever it is, and you know what it's going to look like on TV. Then you've got to go at the end of the week when you've done the task and go to the boardroom, and get absolutely destroyed if you haven't done anything good. And then you've got that fight. So it was like 9 weeks of pure stress, anxiety, nightmare, kind of excitement, fun, experience all at the same time.
I don't understand, how is it so full on? Because it's 9 weeks, but there's only, 12, 13 programs. I'd assume there's just lots of dead time where you're day to day not doing anything, just in the house.
Because you got to imagine, like, every time you get into the vehicle, they film it like 3 or 4 times. Like when you're walking, and then there was so much. All right, you're kind of right, because there's dead time, but there's dead time when you're sat in them black vans and you're off mic, and because they want to capture everything in real time, you're not allowed to talk to each other on a task in case you say something about the task, or and you got to think, when there's 3 or 4 teams out, they're filming multiple sectors to try and tie it into what would make an episode. And the days were long, and we lived in central London, so then you'd go out to Manchester, and then trying to get back in, you'd be in the car for so long, or it was crazy long days. And I don't sleep anyway, and we were getting sort of 3 hours sleep a night. And then they'll bust in your room at 5 a.m. with the cameras ready to wake you up and catch you. I got to a point after day 2 when they'd caught me twice in bed still, that I was setting the alarm. I was up at 4 a.m. before they were coming. I'd already got in the suit and got back in bed, and they were going absolutely mental at me. You're ruining it. You keep getting in suit. You're beating us to it. I said, you're not catching me walking through here in my pants, right? Against without me knowing. So I was always prepared. And, you'd go home, and then it was a bit like a Big Brother in the evenings, where but they weren't filming you. So you'd go into a room and there'd be, you know, the ones that like to backstab and whisper would be whispering or talking about the task. And I ain't got any time for that type of stuff. You know, if I walked into my bedroom and there was one or two of them in there talking, I'm like, get out. Yeah, because we had to share rooms of 5 or 6 people. If you got something to say it straight, you know. So it was a crazy environment. It was just mental. You're at 25 and all of a sudden you're sharing a room with 5 random blokes that you don't know, and you're constantly being filmed and living in this house. It was.
Now, very important question. On behalf of one of our 18-year-olds, he said, you've got to ask him, don't forget, when the phone goes and they said, you've got 20 minutes, the cars will be outside. They don't mean that, do they? It's got to be an hour. It's got to be an hour and a half.
To be honest, it gets pushed a little bit. But when that phone rings, they start running around the house, getting everyone out of bed. That's as soon as that phone rings, right, you hear it. God. And then you know any second that the door's going to bust open. There's going to be 5 or 6 blokes with these 25 grand cameras and the boom mics and everything busting in the room. So then it's like rushing around and then like, come on, everybody out, everybody out, everybody out. And like the main producers are running around like shouting that to get everyone going. So it's chaos, you know, and the time ends up going over, but you do actually try and get out in that time period.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah,
I think he didn't believe that much makeup and hairstyling could happen in 20 minutes.
I mean, they're the ones that we always used to wait for. You know, the boys would be down and ready, and then like there'd be the 1 or 2 girls that really go, and then they'd be screaming at them to hurry up.
Love it.
What were the most challenging bits for you about the whole process?
Cementing the victory. Because I'd cemented it in my mind, so actually cementing it to the rest of the world was a challenge. You know, I wanted to win that show so badly; it meant everything to me. You know, I was there to win. People were there for the sake of it. Sometimes I thought, or they were there for TV. I was there to win, and that was all that I was going to do. It was all I was bothered about. I was so focused. You know, making Lord Sugar. You know, one of the things that I just wanted as a 25-year-old man. It was just wanting him to see me, like the passion and the drive and the ambition, and that I was the right guy. So, you know, trying to excel in every task at just one thing so that they could see that I'd done something important. You know, and I say this, and this is important for the ones out, you know, winners focus on winning, losers focus on winners. Right? So don't get distracted about what other people are doing. You watch that program all the time where they're at each other's throats in the boardroom. They're all saying, he was crap at this, he was crap at that. I never got involved in that. I was like, I did this very well. I did this very well. This is what I did to contribute. This is why I shouldn't be fired. This is why you should pick me. I don't care about what any of them are doing, so I'm so focused on what I'm doing well. And then you only go after them if they come after you, if that makes sense. So I was always focused on trying to get him to see that I was the right person to invest. So that was good. And then trying not to make an idiot out of yourself. It was always in the back of your mind.
Did they get that on camera? Oh, no.
Yeah.
Do you still watch it? Are you still a fan?
I am, but I can't really watch it anymore. I have this weird thing where I shut doors on what's happened in my life, and I have to open new ones. And every time I go back, like I went traveling to Australia when I was 21 and lived there. Like, I don't think I could go back to Australia because I had such a good time with the people that I had there, and it was amazing. And like, it could never be recreated with that gang that I met there. I just wouldn't want to go back there and it not be the same. So when I watched The Apprentice after, I'm like, the music just does something to me, and like the boardroom, and it was such a meaningful time that I just want to remember it here and not put myself back in it, if that makes sense. So no, I can't watch it anymore. I tried to watch the series after mine. I always keep in it, but I don't watch it religiously. As long as I don't like it, just because of my own internal emotional system is the way.
I totally agree with you on the don't go back to Australia thing. I went to Fraser Island twice. First time I went was fantastic. The second time, not long after, it was rubbish. Hated it.
Yeah.
Great
Did it
place.
not feel the same? I went there as well. Did it not just feel the same for you?
It just, yeah, I think it was the group that I went with first time were fabulous, and second time it was boring.
Yeah,
it's a lesson to be learned, I suppose. You always you look back on things nostalgically, like, oh, wouldn't it be amazing if I could go back to, you know, when life was easy, you know, before we had kids and we had, you know, free time and money, and a life, that kind of stuff. But actually, going back, it's not the same at all, because you're a different person now. And you look at things differently. It's the same reason that I can read the same business book 4 times and get something different from it every single time, because every time you read it, you're in a different place. You are a different person. You've learned more stuff. And I think that's something to watch out for, because I know a lot of teenagers are all like, oh, I'd like to just, they think in 10 years time, I still want to be hanging out with these same mates and doing the same sort of stuff. But that's not how it works, because in 10 years time, you're not going to be interested in that stuff anymore. You're going to have moved on.
Right. And that's a hard one. And then, you know what, even when you try and preach it to them, they're not going to listen though, right?
Yep.
That's what I always think. I'm going to be like, no, my son will definitely listen to me. He's going to be like, no, Dad, what are you talking about? I'm going to be like, son, don't you know who I was when I was a youngster? I went through all this. He's going to be like, whatever, you didn't do that.
Dad, you're embarrassing. Shut up.
Yeah.
I know.
That's the trick. They never listen to you. They'll listen to everyone else in the whole world.
Yeah.
Like, someone will say to them something you've been telling them for years, and to them, it's like, oh, okay. Whereas you're like, oh, I've been telling you this forever.
Yeah.
It's a teenager parent thing, I reckon. Right.
So what's your top tips for a budding entrepreneur, or the parents of a budding entrepreneur?
My top tips would be to take an interest in their creativity. Inspire them to go on and do whatever they want to do. Make them believe. If they tell you they're going to be king of the world, go, yeah, you can do that, son. Don't be ridiculous. That's the way that I see it. Don't pull them back down to reality. Let them have wild dreams and go on and chase them if that's what they want to do. Inspire them to do that. I don't try and pull them to average. Let them be insanely crazy if that's what they want. Because if you set their dream there, they'll end up there. If they set it here, they might end up here. So inspire their creativity and let them be creative with it. Try and show an interest and a passion, and if they're telling you about it, and it's something new that you don't really understand, then try and get on board with it. If you really care about them, you're going to learn a little bit about it, so you can talk to them about it with them. I think that's an important one. And just know that they're going to make mistakes, and let them know that it's okay to fail. We're so afraid to fail that we don't ever start. Failure isn't final. Failure is you have to fail your way to success. It's only final if you give up. So if they do mess up, or they do, because they're going to fail loads of times, right? It's coming. So prepare them for it. Let them know that it's going to be hard after they do, and that they pick themselves back up and go again. And they say they're really 2 strong tips.
Awesome. Yeah.
Especially if you're not an entrepreneurial person, you've got to try and get on. You've got to try and get in the zone for them. So you've got to, take responsibility as the parent and learn some stuff about it. To go, oh, you heard what Elon Musk is doing. If that's their guy, and you're not really into him, then take an interest in it and inspire them too.
Yeah. Nice. So, I guess final question probably is, where are you with your business now? What's the plan for the future? Where are you?
So I sold Impra at the end of 2019. We were a national company. We did 10 million in sales a year, 150 staff. It was a big business, and I got out of that business. I now run consultancy as a business, and basically after Impra, I started up a consultancy in construction to support people in the trade that wanted to grow businesses. Plumbers build plumbing businesses, builders build houses, electricians create electrical businesses, but no one's teaching you how to actually run a business. Yeah, a lot of people start a business because they're good at that profession, but they ain't got Scooby-Doo on what it takes to run a company. Yeah, so I'm here to teach them how to now make that transition from tradesman to businessman. And then that was really successful. So I replicated that now into the Power to Succeed brand. So in lockdown, just before lockdown, I was about to start an events business, and we were going to tour the UK and so on and sell business training courses. Then that put a stop. So I had 2 weeks of in this apartment going crazy with whiteboards, writing things all over the walls. Power to Succeed came out of that, and we launched that about bought about 4 weeks ago now, and that's an online training platform through Teachable, where we record and create courses for sales and lots of other things in business. And that's going extremely well. It's a very scalable business. So I call it the Power to Succeed University, the world's #1 success university. So kind of teaching the products that I know, and we'll now scale that internationally because it's all online based. So we run ads to training webinars to convert the sales to buy the courses, and it's very, very scalable. So it's not so much people reliant. It's all systems. It's all online. Some really cool stuff. So I'll be scaling that across every continent and adding courses into it as a go. And now it's time to focus on me, because I got stuck in plumbing. Yeah, plumbing was great to me. Plumbing was amazing for me, but I didn't want to be a plumber. Yeah, I went in at 15 because I had nothing else, and it was good. This is why I go back to you're getting in the coach to get to the next level. Now, there were points that I hated Impra. Yeah, I hated it. I didn't want to be the CEO of a national boiler installation business. I created something in my life that I didn't really want to do, but it was the vehicle, and it had a timestamp on it. So I knew if I sucked it up and, got through that period, I was going to be able to get to that next level. And that's allowed me to do that now, and now I'm going out and I've got the insane knowledge that I've picked up, and, I can go so much bigger and work on the Joseph Valente brand. I want to get back on TV. I want to run the show this time, not be a contestant. So I've got a really cool idea that we're pitching out to production companies at the moment. And and now I'm just ready to explode internationally. I just want to go bigger and bigger and bigger.
So just taking over the world then, yeah?
Yeah, that's the aim.
Staying around college to taking over the world.
Like that to feed. I need something like that to feed my drive. Yeah, I said earlier about your wife. When I got my mum out of work, I think back to it now, and I did go into a slump because I was so bothered about doing that. It's kind of like, right, what's next? Because I'd forgotten about what I wanted, and I was doing it for something else. And once I achieved it, it's taken me a little while to refine what my why is. Now I've found that again, and that's to leave legacy. I want my name to be remembered for 1,000 years when I've gone. So I'm going to build that out and make sure that happens.
Thank you very much for being up with us. If you'd like to know more about how you can support your child through their GCSEs, then head over to parentguidetogcse.com. See you next time.